Good afternoon and welcome back to the first City of Gold Coast committee meeting for 2025. We are starting the 8:51 Governance, Administration and Finance Committee, and I will start with apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Fowler, which I am happy to accept, and as Councillor Taylor second, if we could all vote for that. Thank you very much. Confirmation of minutes. Is there someone who wishes... Councillor Martin, you second? Yes, the minutes. Move the minutes. Yes. Second the minutes. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Happy to take a vote on that to accept the confirmation of minutes. Great. I haven't received any conflict of interest declarations. So we'll just go to the agenda items. We have a number of starred items noted: 5.1, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. Are there any of those items, Councillor Gates, Acting Mayor?
If I could please unstar 6.1 and 6.2, just for a very quick question.
Certainly.
Thanks.
And any other unstarring? No. Great. Okay, so I'll move that we accept the starred items 5.1 and 6.3. Seconder, Councillor Wilkinson. All in favour? Great, thank you. Whizzing through. Okay, so to our Acting Mayor, 6.1, did you want to raise a question?
If I could, through you, Chair. It was just in 6.1, the cash balance was $85 million more than the cash balance on page 42 in November. And I simply wondered what those dollars were spent on and whether it was just maybe the Capital Works program, because that seemed to get a significant boost. It was just a query where those dollars have gone.
Yes, through the Chair, I expect it will be to do with Capital Works spend. I do have the Acting CFO here. I just don't want to mislead you if there's more information, but it will just be our normal spend, capital spend, which can be lumpy, as you know.
Through you, Chair, it's fairly standard for our cash balances to build up at the start of a rate cycle, so in August and February, and then they just come down until the next one. So yeah, it's a combination of both operating and capital expenditure, but there was an increase in the spend in the CapEx program between October and November.
Okay, thank you. That's all. So I'm happy to move 6.1.
Seconder, Councillor Wilkinson. All in favour? Great.
And
thank
also
you.
6.2 moved.
Excellent. Moved, Acting Mayor Councillor Gates. Seconder, Councillor Wilkinson. All in favour? Great, thank you. So we're moving on to 6.4, policy reviews. I have had some discussions with some committee members and discussed with our EGMs, and I have a recommendation that we defer this just till May. That we defer both of these policies. We have requested that we make our policies more concise. So first of all, do I have a seconder for that?
Just to clarify, not all of the policies. So was it just controlled entities and
yes,
beneficial
that's
enterprise?
right. So if we've got it up there, so we'll retire the the recommendation is that we retire the public funding policy and we just defer the other two for another 2 months. You're happy to second that? Okay, so I'll just speak to that. The intention is that we retire any policies where the information that's in there is already in the Act. So we're going through. Mr. Callender, I think we got down from 130 so far to...
Through you, Chair, 134 down to 96 at the moment.
Not at the speed he would like, but we are getting there. It's just because we are still finalising service agreements on the controlled entities. So I had some queries there, and there were also some queries still open about the beneficial enterprise. Anyone got any questions about that? Councillor Gates?
Thanks, Chair. I actually was quite interested in reading this because it suggests in the attachments, which is the standards for the operation of our controlled entities, that we will not appoint councillors to the boards of our controlled entities. And so we've been in breach of our own policy because we've recently appointed the mayor to several of the new entities. So I just hope that I found it a little difficult to assess this without having the service level agreement beside it, because I just need to be sure that everything we need is within the service level agreement if we're not going to have a policy to fall back on. The policy's pretty bland as I read it, but the attachment is quite extensive and covers a lot of things. So I think it's important that we have the service level agreement together with the policy when we make our final decision. Thank you.
Agreed. And we had a briefing meeting before this committee meeting, and it was agreed that those service agreements, which certainly should be finalised by end of May, would be attached to that. I also raised the issue that we were in breach when we appointed a councillor not as an observer but as an actual director, committee member of the controlled entities. It was pointed out that we are entitled to do that, any council resolution. However, the point was made and accepted that it'd be great if that was brought to our attention, because I don't think any of us had the policy next to us and we were checking it at the time, and I don't think that it got raised at the time. So just if you wanted to make any comment.
Through you, Chair, no, I agree with both things that you've said. Yeah, yes, the council can, through a resolution, endorse a change to that policy. However, we agreed that, it's probably best interest of everyone to actually check that prior to papers coming up. And second, yes, as far as the SLAs being aligned to the retirement of the policy, that's absolutely part of the discussion and where we landed with deferring this.
Thank you.
And I also note when we put this policy in, the legislation requirements were much weaker on councils establishing controlled entities than they are now. If Mr. Callender or Ms. Green want to speak to that, just in terms of the new legislation that kind of that council has to meet. Yeah.
Absolutely. It probably was standard practice, I would say, about 10 years ago in local government, particularly local government in Queensland, to have both a beneficial enterprises policy and a controlled entities policy. And I think the reviews and the investigations that occurred back in the days of Balcarra and the subsequent Operation Windage report that followed those two reviews resulted in significant change to the legislation. So in relation to these particular policies, and the report does show the links back to the legislation itself was strengthened so that the councils themselves didn't need the policy to provide that level of governance. So as part of the assessment in the report that we've made, we've provided those links back to the relevant legislation. If council doesn't feel that those links are strong enough, we can certainly consider any of those specific rules that you want to apply to beneficial enterprises and controlled entities above the legislation in policy.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was interested when I read the report, and it suggested that other local governments were explored in terms of their management of their controlled entities. But it occurred to me that perhaps as the second largest, maybe they don't even have controlled entities, most of the smaller councils. I mean, I was surprised during the break to have a chat with the Mayor of Scenic Rim, and their whole budget is $70 million. I mean, it just doesn't compare with this council, so it's important, I think, that we're fully across it all.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on that? So I'll close on this. When Paul Callender took his role as head of people strategy and performance, most of our policies had not been reviewed for quite a long time. So it was an intent of this council this term to really tighten those up, and where there was duplication, I suppose, of the Act, that we remove those. So this, retiring the public funding involving private property policy, there's nothing in that policy that isn't in the Act that we can't lend to. But Councillor Martin and I did note it's surprising when you do have 100 and however many policies, you don't actually refer to them and we missed information. So both of us were interested in a wall, which was a private wall, being treated and painted for the benefit of the public, and we weren't actually referring to this policy at the time. So we know now that that's something that can be done, which is great, but we can pursue that through other ways. And with the deferment, as mentioned, just so that we've really make sure that we're squeaky clean, got our head around those controlled entities documents. So all in favour? Great, thank you. Okay, so 6.5 could have starred this. So are there any questions about this one? So this is for our budget. We've just got proposed amended dates, new forward schedule. I'm happy to move that. Seconded Councillor Wilkinson. All in favour? Great. We are zooming through. I was considering...
Chairman, can I just ask, I know we voted, but what was the reason for that 2-week delay? Is it just needing more time to...
Just, yeah, obviously that May meeting is to do with the rates finalisation, and then just flying all of those decisions into the final papers to make sure we've got it all.
It's just a little unusual because the last council meeting is 2 weeks earlier, and then there's no meetings in between, and then there's the scheduled budget adoption. So it's just a little unusual, but I get it if there's not time.
Yeah, it was allow sufficient time.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow on, I'm sure it will, but I know that special budget's not in our calendars, but if that could go in ASAP, just so we don't allocate that time, would be great.
Yes, we can add, through the chair, we can add that as a placeholder.
Great, thank you. Are there any other items of business anyone wishes to discuss? I was going to raise a general business. I'm not going to raise it as a general business item, but I will just raise a question. And this is regarding the unit rate categorisation, and it was brought to my attention that the advocacy work of the Local Government Association of Queensland on behalf of the Sunshine Coast, who made a motion in 2023 that the state government amend the Act to enable councils to consider property valuation for units as they do for single dwellings, and they've made a request for that because I suppose at the moment we are using tools that are clunky to try and manufacture that, which is why Sunshine Coast asked, why it got completely supported at the convention, and why LGAQ presented that. It's just come to my attention, I hadn't realised this, that the former government just did a thanks for sharing and didn't really respond to the LGAQ. I wanted to raise a matter that we re-question that and have this new government look at it. But through to Ms. Crisp, my understanding is that we will be discussing this as part of the full review that comes back in response to petitions. Can you just confirm that?
Yes. So we're just finalising that report in response to the feedback that we received from the town hall and also all of the petitions. We're close to finalisation of that, so I expect that will either go to this coming council meeting or the one after.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Acting Mayor.
It's not a question. I just hope that that commentary doesn't give people an idea that we might change the way that the rates are calculated to it being based on capital improved value rather than land value, because that would be something the government needed to decide it, and there would be a whole range of issues associated with that, including the cost of inspections and valuation. So it would be incredibly unlikely that there would be a change to the rating system in that way in advance of our delivery of the next budget. So I simply clarify that so that people don't all of a sudden think we're going to review the whole way that the rates are calculated, which would not be at our discretion at this time.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really good point to make, that if it is determined that this is part of our decision making that we want to advocate to the state, there is no way that that would be complete in time to impact on our budget decisions this year. Okay, any other questions, comments? So on this first committee meeting on this day with a new US president, I call the 851 GAF committee complete.